Hey guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate you clicking on this video. Today we are going to be breaking down the Battlefield 2042 review. I'm going to try my best to stay on task and focused. Full transparency, ADHD is my dark passenger, so we're likely to fall off track a couple times. I want to go ahead and break this down into basically 5 portions. The initial portion is going to be talking about a lot of the complaints that I've seen from the community and me talking about my opinions of them. Then we're going to further go down and break down the gunplay, movement, performance, and balance inside of the beta to really capture all the elements and essentials that we experience. So, you guys can feel free to leave your comments down below. Give me your perspective and tell me what you thought about it. And if you'd like to go a little bit further and really help me out with the algorithm and with YouTube and growth, please consider leaving a like on the video as it helps out tremendously. So, let us begin. Now, for the complaint section, this is like a 50-50 thing for me. One of these I kind of messed with and I understood and I could relate to. The other one just completely missed me entirely. So we'll start with that one. The first one was that I saw a lot. I'm not talking like a few. I saw tons of people saying the map was too big. I can't find any conflict. I saw like 12 dudes a whole game. I don't know how you did it. It's honestly, it's a mystery to me. I managed to drop a 114 kill game as infantry, quite often hitting 60, 70, 80 kills. So for people to act like they didn't find any action, to me that only boils down to lack of decisions on your spawns and location. Now if you were spending a lot of time at A or F or going over the mountain between C and D over and over, back and forth a lot, then yeah, I could see how you would burn a lot of time and maybe not find the kind of action that you would be looking for. But me, I never felt like I went without it. I didn't feel slower than any other Battlefield experience ever. I don't get that one. So, I don't know. But that gameplay will be up here soon. You guys are more than welcome to check that out on the channel if you guys haven't yet. Let's go ahead and talk about the second one. Now, this one I can relate to. And I'm going to be honest, my mind and opinion about this shifted from day 1 to day 4 of the beta. Initially, I was indifferent about the specialist system. I was kind of like, it's just them trying to do something a little different. We all still have the heals. We can all revive. It's no big deal. Still same Battlefield. Wrong. And to be fair, I don't think all of the blame solely falls on Battlefield 2042. I think what this translates to, and I feel like what the community is trying to put out, is that specialists aren't necessarily bad, but there's a void now where classes used to be. And what I mean by this is the last few titles in Battlefield have honestly kind of stepped away from roles in a traditional sense. They've slowly weaned us off of the need for a traditional role. Perfect example would be the engineer. I mean, how many repair tools did you see in 2042? How many did you see in BF5, BF1? And I noticed that they started to become less and less essential to the gameplay. Like in BF3 and BF4, you needed a repair guy. It really made a difference in a conflict. It was huge. And then, you know, self-repairing became more prominent, and the smoke and the tank and infantry options became a little weaker to counter the armor. And survivability just became easier to do on your own, and therefore the need for that role slowly died. So we haven't necessarily needed engineers for quite some time, in my opinion. And now it kind of feels like we don't need medics anymore. And that's a huge role that we're used to, like a foundational role. And we've kind of stepped away from that. And this is probably a combination of a few things. Now that we have specialists, it's streamlined. We can heal ourselves. We don't need no medic anymore. We don't need that. We can do it ourselves. And anybody can revive. So it's almost like those roles were like a purpose inside of Battlefield, and now it feels like those purposes are gone because just anybody can do it. And they kind of made Battlefield. It was kind of essential, you know, it was unique, and that purpose, that role to play for the team is now void. It's gone. And I get that argument, I do. So I would personally prefer to have the classic layout back and shelf the specialists, or find a happy medium between the two, and maybe find a way to actually still retain classes, you know, support, engineers, so on and so forth, and then plug these types of characters or specialists inside of them in some way. But hey, who knows? We could probably find a nice medium between the two. So we're gonna move over to the second segment. We're looking at gunplay. Now, I know not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's cool. But I think the gunplay combined with the mobility in this game, the movement, is the best that we've ever had in a Battlefield. And I know a lot of people are talking about this. This is buzzing on social media right now. But the gunplay just felt good. The gunplay felt amazing. I would shoot, the registration, the shots, and yes, sometimes guns and gunfights were lasers, but why is that a bad thing? Right? No matter what you know of video games, for some reason, I think there's this misconception that people believe that more recoil equals a higher skill gap, and I couldn't argue that harder. More recoil, yes, is it harder to control? Absolutely, but it's harder to control for everybody. So whether or not there's less recoil, a sweet middle ground, or a lot of recoil, we're all fighting the same thing. Naturally, all we really want is a level playing field, so that the gunfights are fair. So whether or not it has a lot of recoil or a little recoil, that's honestly irrelevant. That doesn't do anything for the skill gap, in my honest opinion. Even games like Valorant and Counter-Strike, considered to be the upper echelon of competitive shooters, they have predictable, practicable recoil patterns. And, you know, randomness isn't too great. I think BF5 had a bit of randomness and stuff like that, but at least when it's this way, it's direct and it's more precise and it's smoother this way. So I like this system. I really do like the gunfight and the dueling. It just feels good. Could it do with a little bit more recoil? It wouldn't hurt. And honestly, it would probably appeal more to more of the community, a larger amount of the community. So I welcome that. But honestly, going too far would really be detrimental to the experience, though. So that is just like a slight tweak, or leave it as is. Moving over to the movement, though. Now, this is where I think I've seen the most arguing and the most complaints out of Battlefield. Is I've seen so many references. Oh, it's like Warzone now. I don't want Warzone. It's like Call of Duty. I'm here to tell you that Battlefield has been behind the curve in movement compared to everybody else out there. And a lot of people, and people felt this way too. There were some die-hard fans of suppression back in like BF3 days. We want it. We want it. It's different. It's not like COD. And different doesn't mean better. We're in a day and age where everybody innovates by copying each other, right? Like if if slower movement was the in thing and it was a better option, everybody would be copying Battlefield. Not to mention where in the script do we write in that Battlefield had to be a slower pace experience? I welcome this change. And we've seen something like this before in like Battlefield 4, where there's a standard movement and then people have learned how to, I mean, obviously exploit and do advanced jumping and maneuverability. Of course, it kind of, there was almost teleportation involved and weird hitbox situations with it, so it was definitely sloppy and kind of unfair in Battlefield 4. But we've seen things like this before with this kind of higher level maneuverability, but at least it's streamlined now. It's smooth and it's fluid, and it's very easy and accessible. It's not something like a trick you would have to learn, like in Battlefield 4. Now, just everybody can do it. It's just a matter of learning to do it. And, you know, combining your crouches, your movement, your slides, your jumps, and doing that together, I don't think that takes away from the Battlefield experience. Everybody else is doing it. It's not just COD. It's Apex. Even Halo, which is traditionally like a non-sprint game, has come and evolved to this point where they've had grapples and sprinting and things like this. It's kind of like they need to get with the times. There are other games out there that are slower paced or more realistic. Battlefield is not one of them. It's not. I can stab you with a needle and bring you back from the dead. What's up? I'm a sorcerer. Come on now. So, put that aside. I'm pro movement. I'm pro gunplay. I think this is the best combination Battlefield's ever seen, honestly. There are other things that this game may not be doing great at, but I think that combination, the best we've had. Personally, the movement really adds to the skill gap. Not too dramatically, but enough that it can determine a gunfight and influence a gunfight. Third on the list is performance. Any DICE devs in the video right now like, oh, okay. I'm gonna pause it. The performance was, man, this was bad. Between hit registration issues, guys clipping into the ground, like anytime some dude would fall off of something or parachute late, it's like the bottom half of his body would be in the ground and he somehow became some sort of human shark, land shark. I don't know, man. It was honestly haunting. And I mean, I saw a lot of things. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to punish it or judge it too hard because it is a beta, and the hit registration, the frames and the performance, if we're going to be honest and transparent about it, It is leaps better, absolute freaking loads better than the earlier stage alpha playtest that we've seen gameplay of. So that was a huge leap. I'm hoping that we see a huge leap from the beta over to the full release, but the performance was bad. I mean, jets are teleporting. Somebody call up Mulder. They are out there, right? You guys saw it where they were just like kites, just teleporting through the sky. And there was just a lot of things they needed to work on in terms of connectivity, performance, frames. Computers were being overworked. We even heard mentions of leaks. And I mean, the older consoles, the PS4, the Xbox Ones, they were really struggling and chugging along to make this thing work. So I really want to see that refined, and I think this is priority number one for them. This has got to be what they have to have executed right out the door or shortly after launch, because this is something that will break their game if they don't get hit registration right. Aiming and accuracy is crucial. You need to make sure your shots hit. There are multiple times. Almost every time I had a double kill, I would put like 5 shots into one guy. The guy would be standing right next to him and he'd take 10. It was very inconsistent. I actually noticed the health bar was still slowly chipping away, and I had already killed the guy. There was late audio cue indicators. There was just some really weird things going on there. So wasn't a fan of that. Moving over to balance. Now this, however, I think they've done 2 out of 3 right. I think they got the specialists, and I think they got the soldier balance, infantry balanced pretty well. There's a couple things they need tweaked on, and the vehicle one, however, really needs to kind of go back to the drawing board. So we'll start with the infantry. I think gun terms, I think it was great. I never felt like, oh man, he only beat me because he was using the, the Vector, or he only beat me because he had the M5. I never felt that way, and I think that's a really good sign, a healthy sign that they have established that in the beta already. Shotguns were very inconsistent. Again, that could be just hit reg issues or velocity issues, but that was a very weird thing. I found that I just really wouldn't even touch shotguns based on that experience. Sniping, which is my personal favorite way to play, needs some love. And I don't think it's a dramatic need, but this is the worst sniping that Battlefield has ever had, and I don't think it's close. But I think the fix is fairly easy too. It's a bullet velocity game. They just need to improve that by 10, maybe 20% or something, and just make the shots a little bit smoother, a little bit more reliable to hit. I think they're afraid of making it so that people can just cross map everybody with 128 players, just pick people, double tap, double tap. But even that is still possible in the current state if they learn to lead. So making it just slightly easier for the sake of a smoother experience, I don't think is going to really hurt the game. If anything, that'll open up the door, because right now I felt intimidated even at long range dueling against ARs. I was nervous that I would lose that, and that should never be the case. Maybe against a marksman like DMR situation. Yeah, okay, I get that. But against an AR, that shouldn't happen. So the gunplay was really good. The guns felt fairly balanced. I really enjoyed them. The pistols were interesting, and they were in a good spot. The anti-air options, and the explosives. The rockets, the lock-on was very awkward. Again, tracking and pathing issues with the lock-on rockets. The reload speed on the recoilless was just, oh my god, it was atrocious. It was terrible. And I think they made them generally a little bit weaker and harder to take down the vehicles in this game, because they were anticipating more players, therefore potentially more people targeting these aircraft and tanks, and I kind of understand that. So I think they went on the safer side and made them a little weak, and then are going to tune them to work, because that stuff was just absolutely wild. As for the specialists, I think the balance was actually really nice. I think my biggest concern was with the specialist being too much like a hero shooter, too many like Overwatch-like characters, or even like Apex Legends. I was like, oh man, the first one I saw and I was afraid of was McKay. I'm like, he's gonna have a grappling hook. Please tell me we don't have a Pathfinder in our hand. And though I really enjoy McKay, I have never in the demo or in the beta ever went, oh man, he only killed me because he had a grappling hook. No, I kind of like, I took it and I went with it. Like it didn't feel like it was overwhelming. It's a gimmick and it's cool to have the different abilities, but it never felt like, one of them really is overpowered or anything, and that made me feel major relief at the end of it. As for the vehicles, tanks were kind of meh, jets were kind of meh. Helicopters, however, were quite noticeably overpowered. It was the only part of the beta that I was actually frustrated at, is you could get farmed by vehicles. With any sort of, even average pilots could do some really heavy work, and I know that because, well, I did, and that's me. And I don't think it's going to be hard to tweak the helicopters. I think what needs to happen is, because the maneuverability for the aircraft now is crazy. I mean, jets can really like pretty much halt to a stop. The VTOLs are interesting. The helicopters can it's almost like they're jointed, man. They can bend and fling and snap in different areas. It's harder to hit them now than it's ever been, in my opinion. And they have a lot of control. I mean, it's worse than ever. And because of that increased versatility, I think they need to be squishier as compensation. They need to be more susceptible to like AP rounds and chain guns and other vehicles and things like that, because I heard rumors of like tanks actually hitting helicopters with the, you know, the shell and not actually killing them in one shot. And I was like, what? I know the recoilless straight shot, the non-tracking RPG, that didn't kill the helicopters in one shot either. Quite often it was really weird and inconsistent to me. Very frustrating, honestly. So they need to go back to that. As for the balance of the Nightbird, that one really needs some love. The VTOL potentially could be a little bit weaker because of how quick he can move. And the Nightbird was, I think it needs to be flipped, right? Like the chain gun, it requires more skill and somehow it's weaker, but the rocket barrage is easier to use and stronger. So the easier to use one should be a little weaker, and the harder to use one should be a little stronger to find a happy medium. So I think they need to kind of nerf the rockets a little and buff the chain gun a little so that you have nice balance and harmony between the two options, so that it's not clearly lopsided and very noob friendly, for lack of better words. And that is the end of the video, guys. I want to thank you guys for sharing part of your day. This was a longer commentary. I was just kind of on a rant. I don't know if you guys share the same feelings that I do, but feel free to leave your own opinions down in the comment section below. Anything you want to put down there, let me know. Reminder to subscribe. We have lots of content coming. Tick that bell so you never miss any of the other 2042 videos. And just thank you again for being here and clicking on this video. I'll catch you with another one pretty soon, guys. Thank you.